Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford, and this is one of my half videos in my Old Norse lesson series, kind of dealing with something that really isn't a whole lesson topic, but that has a lot to do with reading Old Norse and can kind of help you put some finesse on your reading and translating of that language. And today what I want to address is just briefly the subject of homonyms in Old Norse and English, because they're not necessarily going to be the same between the two languages. Right, monolinguals especially, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being monolingual. You know, most people I know are, so, you know, no, I feel like I need to look around my shoulder here, but I don't mean any offense. Monolingual people tend to think of homonyms as being obviously the same word, when in fact they're not. So a good example of that in English is who. If I ask, who is it? Who is there? It's an interrogative pronoun that can be replaced in the answer by he is there, or she is there, or the name of somebody is there, something like that. But that's a different word, a different part of speech than if I say, I am the one who knocks, right? It's not a question. Instead, it's a relative. It's making the one that I am and the one who knocks the same, right? It's a linking relative pronoun. So that relative pronoun and the interrogative pronoun are not the same word. Now, in Old Norse, they are not translated the same. So in Old Norse, if I ask, who is it, who is there, I use hver, right? Hver thar, who is there? Hver that, who is that? Who is it? But if I want to say I am the one who knocks, that would be ek em so and then knocks, I don't know, maybe slær, right? Because you strike the door, so I'm the one who strikes the door. But anyway, who in the interrogative sense, in the sense of that question word, is hver, but in the relative sense, I'm the one who knocks, it's So if you come into Old Norse expecting that all the homonyms in English are going to be the same as all the homonyms in Old Norse, you're going to be mistaken. And this is part of why I try in these early lessons to emphasize all the grammar categories and such, because people just aren't often in the habit of thinking about them. Then you have examples of homonyms in Old Norse, and one of the best examples is So we just saw, can mean who, right? I'm the one who knocks. It can mean is, right? So who is it? Hver that. It can mean when. So that happened when I was younger. Ek var yngri. But then that's a different word in Old Norse from the question when, which is hvenar, right? When were you there? Hvenar vart du þar? And then can also mean where. So Colorado is where I live. Colorado þar ek bí. It is there where I live. So it can mean is, it can mean who in the relative sense. It can mean where or when in the relative sense. So there's words that are all homophonous in Old Norse, words that are homophonous in English, and they rarely cross over. And part of learning a language is learning the sort of differences between words that you've previously thought of as the same. So the best examples of these still are like the who, interrogative, who is it versus I am who. The same thing in Old Norse, you have a different word if you ask where something is versus you say this is where it is, or you ask when something happened versus you say this is when it happened. So we have to separate these interrogative words from these relatives in English that we tend to think of as the same. Another one that we tend to think of as the same in English is that. So if I say like, this is that mineshaft that I told you about, notice that I've used that in two different senses. I said that in this sort of indicative, deictic, demonstrative sense, and then that in a relative sense, right? The one that I told you about. So in Old Norse, the deictic, the indicative, the pointing out one, That's saw, a pronoun about which we did a whole separate video in this Old Norse series. And then this is the one that I told you about. That is right? Just like the relative who. Has the sense of relative who, of relative which, and of relative that. So we have to separate what's homophonous in one language from what's homophonous in the other. And I will always make an effort in teaching these videos to keep these categories separate, to help those of you who maybe have not thought about what's separate before, in what might be separate in another language, because you've only thought about English. I will try to help you think about it in a way that's reasonably clear. All right, well, I hope these videos continue to be of some use to you. And from the Golden San Juans of beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.